In a world absolutely obsessed with constant hustle and, taking immediate action, the ultimate power move isn't actually doing anything. It's weaponized observation.
Yeah.
Today, we're exploring how simply watching a situation unfold can completely reshape reality.
Right. It basically flips our entire modern playbook on success completely upside down.
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned to act, to intervene, to speak up right away. Taking a step back is, well, it's often viewed as a weakness, when mechanically it might be the strongest leverage point you actually have.
Totally. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to actually pull this off, a quick heads up for everyone listening. Our companion app, YOAYOW, is officially live and ready to download on the Apple App Store.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited. And also, the book version of the framework we're unpacking today, The Mind Key to the I Ching, is now available on Amazon. So if you want to take these mental models with you into your daily life, definitely go grab those.
Which is going to be incredibly useful because the framework we're dealing with today requires a complete rewiring of how you process crises. So let's get into it. Today's deep dive centers on an ancient framework from the I Ching, specifically focusing on a concept known as Guan, which translates to observation.
Right.
And for those who aren't familiar with the architecture of the I Ching, it uses these visual symbols called hexagrams. You can think of a hexagram as a stack of 6 horizontal lines. That stack is broken into 2 halves, a bottom set of 3 lines, which is the lower trigram, and a top set of 3, called the upper trigram.
And the imagery assigned to this specific stack is wind blowing over the earth.
Okay, I love this visual.
Right. Because if you picture that physically, wind goes everywhere. It sweeps through every valley, touches every single leaf, maps out every contour of the landscape, and the earth...
It just sits there.
Exactly. It just accepts the wind. It doesn't push back or, try to negotiate. It simply receives the information.
So the goal today is to decode how you can adopt that exact mindset to strip away your personal biases, navigate incredibly messy situations like a toxic office environment or a failing project, and basically become an immovable force.
But this isn't just about casually people watching at a coffee shop, is it?
Not at all. There are 3 initial mental frameworks you have to master before you can even begin to observe at this level. And the first one is called the vacuum period.
The vacuum period.
Yeah, so the text uses this really specific metaphor for it. It describes washing your hands in preparation for a major ceremony, but then deliberately hesitating before you actually offer the sacrifice.
Oh, wow. So you're just holding the tension.
You're holding the tension. You are creating a gap between preparation and execution.
Yeah.
Think about receiving a furious, borderline insulting email from a client.
We've all been there.
Right. And your immediate biological instinct is to just hammer out a defense and hit send. But the vacuum period demands that you pull your hands off the keyboard.
You let the crisis breathe.
Exactly. By refusing to act in that initial spike of panic, you create a vacuum. And that forces the situation to reveal its actual shape rather than the shape your anxiety projected onto it.
I mean, I see the value there, but practically, how do you stop yourself? Because when the adrenaline hits, the urge to just fix it is overwhelming.
Oh, it's incredibly hard. You have to train yourself to recognize that physical sensation of urgency as a warning sign, not an instruction.
A warning sign.
Right. When you feel that tightness in your chest telling you to act immediately, you mentally label it. You say, okay, this is the panic phase, and you consciously decide to wait 24 hours or even just 20 minutes before speaking. You're forcing the muddy water to settle before you drink it.
Which plays directly into the second framework, emptying the vessel. Because you can't observe anything clearly if your head is full of assumptions.
And honestly, this is the hardest step. If you bring your past grievances, your ego, or your desperate hope for a specific outcome into a room, you aren't actually observing reality.
Right, you're just scanning the environment for evidence that proves you were right all along.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does a person actually drop their biases? I mean, we all have them. You can't just flip a switch and become a blank slate.
Well, you don't eliminate the bias. You quarantine it.
Quarantine it.
Yeah, before you enter the boardroom or before you sit down for that really difficult conversation with your partner, you do a mental inventory. You explicitly state to yourself, I want this project to fail because I don't like the manager, or I am terrified of being fired.
Wow. So you call it out.
You call it out, put those thoughts in a box, and set it on the shelf. You have to treat the incoming data as if you were a completely neutral alien who just landed on the planet.
You completely separate the data from the emotion, which sets us up for the third framework. And honestly, this is the one that really challenges our modern sensibilities. Observation as reconstruction?
Yeah, the core idea here is that a human stare actually carries weight.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Imagine a rotting wound that could be a failing department at your company or a chaotic supply chain issue. If you direct your full, unwavering attention onto that rot without immediately trying to bandage it or hide it, the problem often begins to dismantle itself.
Just by looking at it.
Yeah. The sheer act of maintaining a calm, relentless gaze forces the panic to burn off.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Because to a lot of us, just staring at a massive problem without lifting a finger sounds identical to procrastination.
Sure.
Or worse, freezing up. Like if my life is falling apart, how do I keep from just being a deer in the headlights while the truck runs me over?
Because a deer in the headlights is paralyzed by cognitive overload. Its brain has literally shut down because of fear.
Right.
What we are talking about is active, hypervigilant pausing. It actually requires an immense amount of cognitive energy.
Walk me through the mechanical difference then. What is my brain doing in this state that a paralyzed brain isn't?
Well, a paralyzed brain is looping the worst-case scenario over and over again. But an actively observing brain is dissecting the mechanics of the threat. You're asking, how fast is the truck moving? What is the terrain like to my left? Is there traction under my feet?
Ah, so you're gathering high-fidelity data so that your single movement is flawless. You aren't freezing. You're calculating the geometry of the situation.
Exactly. You are loading the spring.
Okay, so let's map out how we actually progress through this. The I Ching breaks this down into 6 distinct stages, moving from the bottom to the top. We start in the lower trigram, which is the earth element. This is all about looking inward and navigating the shadows.
Right. And line 1 of this progression is the entry-level perspective, which is known as the child's gaze.
This is where you're just skimming the surface of the water.
Oh,
You
yeah.
take in all the noise, the flashing lights, the drama, but you don't dig into the roots. The classic Western equivalent here would be mindless doom scrolling on social media.
It is the perfect modern analogy. You swipe through 30 videos in 10 minutes, you read a provocative headline, you get a quick hit of outrage, and you just move on to the next one.
You don't understand the algorithm feeding you the content. You don't understand the economic incentives of the influencer or the political strategy behind the article. You're literally just letting the wind blow you around.
Yeah. And the text notes that for a child or for someone who carries no actual responsibility in society, this level of observation is harmless. If you just want to be entertained, fine.
Right. But the moment you try to use the child's gaze to make a serious life choice,
Yeah.
like where to invest your savings or how to plot your career trajectory, you invite catastrophe.
Absolutely. Because you're building a house on a foundation of gossip. To survive in a high-stakes environment, you have to evolve to line 2, which is referred to as the peeping Tom.
You're peeping Tom.
Yeah. You recognize that you're vulnerable, so you remove yourself from the open field. You hide in the shadows and observe the world from the cracks in the door. You meticulously map out the environment before you ever step into the light.
So think about starting a brand new corporate job at a massive, complex company. The absolute worst thing you can do is walk into your first department meeting and start pitching ideas just to prove how smart you are.
Oh yeah, disaster.
You don't know the invisible power structures yet. You don't know that the marketing director secretly hates the sales director, or which VP actually controls the budget.
And if you speak too early, you step on a landmine you didn't even know was there.
So instead, you adopt the line 2 mindset. You sit quietly in the back of the room. You become part of the furniture. You watch who interrupts whom, whose jokes get laughed at, and who's completely ignored when they speak.
Exactly.
But let me play devil's advocate here. Corporate culture tells us to lean in. We're constantly told that visibility is currency. If I sit in the shadows for my first 3 months, doesn't my manager just assume I'm dead weight? Doesn't this border on cowardice?
It becomes cowardice if you stay there permanently, but line 2 is temporary. It is tactical reconnaissance.
Tactical reconnaissance, I like that.
Right. The key to not looking like dead weight is to use your observation to ask highly targeted questions rather than making broad statements.
Oh, that's smart.
You're proving your value by demonstrating that you see the nuances of the system. You are hoarding your political capital until you know exactly where to spend it for maximum impact.
You're waiting to find the high-leverage move.
Mm.
And that reconnaissance gives you the data you need for the turning point of this entire lower stage, which is line 3, the brutal self-audit.
This is where the outward gaze stops completely. You take all that data you gathered from peering through the cracks and you pull the handbrake, you turn the magnifying glass entirely onto yourself.
This is the 2 a.m. career audit. It's the middle of the night, the blue light of the laptop is illuminating your face, and you finally stop looking at what everyone else is achieving. To sit there and coldly calculate your own resources.
Yes, you weigh your actual capabilities against the reality of the environment you just mapped.
But the challenge is doing this without plunging into a pit of self-pity, you know? How does a person execute a self-audit without it turning into a depressive spiral?
You have to treat yourself like a business you are thinking about acquiring.
Oh, wow. Okay. You look at the balance sheet. How much financial runway do you actually have? What hard skills do you possess that the market actually wants, completely outside of the buzzwords on your resume?
Right.
Is your current path a dead end, given the power structures you observed in line 2?
So you're determining whether to advance or retreat. If you realize you're a featherweight, you don't jump into the ring with a heavyweight just because you know his fighting style. You have to acknowledge your weight class.
And taking that honest inventory is the exact mechanism that prepares you to finally step out of the shadows.
Yeah.
That self-awareness forces a shift. We move from the lower trigram, the earth, looking inward from the bottom, up to the upper trigram, representing wind, looking outward from the top down.
We elevate to a grand panorama. Welcome to line 4, the panoramic view.
You are no longer in the mud fighting over daily scraps. You are standing on the city walls, looking down at the entire machinery of the kingdom.
Let's ground this. It's like moving from being a stressed-out line cook to being the restaurant consultant.
Perfect analogy. Right. Because when you're the line cook, your entire reality shrinks down to one burnt steak or one delayed ticket. You are reacting to the immediate heat of the pan.
Your observation is entirely tactical and reactive.
But when you evolve to the consultant, you step back. You stand in the center of the kitchen and you watch the flow. You realize the steaks are burning because the floor layout forces the servers to walk too far, which delays ticket times, which causes the cook to rush. You see the entire living organism.
And because you see the whole organism, you don't need to yell at the cook. You move a prep table 3 feet to the left and the entire kitchen speeds up.
Wow.
Your interventions become minimal but devastatingly effective. You act as an esteemed guest, bringing value to a larger system.
Which naturally elevates you to the absolute pinnacle of this hexagram. Line 5, the ruler's gaze. Or, as I like to think of it, the yardstick.
You step into the center of the storm, but instead of trying to micromanage the chaos around you, you simply embody the standard.
You become the rule. Let's look at how this works mechanically in human behavior. Think of a truly great CEO or a deeply grounded stoic parent. They do not have to yell to get people to behave.
No, they don't.
Just their physical presence in the room drops the temperature.
They project a sort of behavioral gravity.
Exactly. Sorry, I mean, that's a brilliant way to phrase it. Behavioral gravity. When they walk in, everyone else instinctively measures their own conduct against that person's quiet integrity.
Yeah.
It's like striking a tuning fork in a room full of string instruments. You don't walk around tuning everyone's guitar. You just hold the tuning fork up. The pure physics of the sound waves forces all the other instruments in the room to resonate at your pitch.
It works because the mechanics of it rely on the fact that humans are social mimics. When a group is in a state of panic, they unconsciously look for the most regulated nervous system in the room and attempt to mirror it. If your internal water is completely still, the people around you will begin to reflect that stillness. Authority in this stage is incredibly passive in its action, but overwhelming in its presence.
But the framework doesn't end with you sitting on the throne. There's a 6th line, and it is a fascinating, almost haunting departure from everything else. Line 6, the cold monument.
This is the ultimate detachment. You have been the naive child, the spy in the shadows, the ruthless auditor, the consultant, and the ruler. In line 6, you step entirely off the board.
Wow.
You strip away your ego, your personal desires, and your need for legacy, and you become an objective historical marker.
A monument left behind for future generations to study. I think the best modern equivalent is a retired founder writing a public postmortem on a massive, highly embarrassing startup failure.
Yes. And to do that properly requires a supernatural level of detachment.
Right. How do you even achieve that? How does a human being strip the anger and the ego out of their own life story?
The mechanical trick is to tell the story of your own failure as if it happened to a stranger. You remove the words I and me from the narrative wherever possible.
Interesting.
So you don't write, my co-founder betrayed me and the market was unfair. You write, the leadership team lacked alignment and the product ignored current market data.
You offer up your own blood, sweat, and tears as a clinical sample for others to dissect. You turn your worst moments into a warning sign of monument, so the next generation of entrepreneurs doesn't fall into the same trap.
Precisely. You achieve pure observation because you are finally observing your own life from the outside, entirely unattached to the outcome.
So let's tie this entire progression together. We started by dismantling the idea that observing is just passively watching things happen. It is a deliberate, aggressive evolution.
Yes, it is.
You transition from the naive scroller who reacts to every piece of bait to the tactical spy mapping out the corporate minefield. You use that data to run a ruthless self-audit at 2 a.m., evaluating your weight class. You step onto the city walls to see the grand system. You become the tuning fork that aligns the room. And finally, you detach completely to leave a roadmap for whoever comes next.
It's a complete methodology for carving order out of chaos. But there is a crucial final truth we have to confront here.
What's that?
The entire purpose of this intense, silent observation is to lay all the hidden traps, the broken systems, and the toxic relationships out in the bright sunlight.
It clears the muddy water so you can finally see the bottom of the glass.
Yes. But once the water is clear and the rotting wood of a bad situation is fully exposed, you cannot just keep watching forever. At a certain point, observation has done its job.
When the rot is undeniable, staring at it isn't enough anymore. The only thing left to do is to pick up a hammer and smash it to pieces.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the I Ching's next major concept, a hexagram literally called biting through. Observation is merely the rigorous preparation for decisive, unavoidable action.
Observation sets the target, and biting through pulls the trigger. We will definitely have to save the mechanics of the hammer for a future deep dive, but it perfectly frames why we spend so much time learning how to look.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final lingering question to turn over in your mind. Think about a massive high-stakes decision you are facing right now in your own life. If you were to sit down tonight, pull a handbrake, and execute a cold, brutal audit, are you genuinely observing the reality of the train in front of you? Or are you just staring at your own prejudices and fears reflected back at you in the glass?